Learn English through stories. D12. Adapted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Contents: 1. Snow White and Rose Red. 2. The Two-Headed Weaver. 3. Grammar page, pronouns. Snow White and Rose Red. Once upon a time there was a poor widow. In front of her small cottage there were 2 rose trees, one of them flowered in white and the other in red. The widow had 2 daughters, one of them was called Snow White and the other one was called Rose Red. They were good and kind children. They were hard-working and also good singers. Although they were sisters, Snow White was the quieter and gentler one. Both children loved each other so much that whenever they went out, they walked together hand in hand. And when Snow White said, "We will never be separated," Rose Red would always answer, "As long as we are alive." Their mother would add, "I am the happiest mother in the world to have you too. You should promise me that you will always take care of each other, and that you will share everything you have." And the girls would promise. In the summer, Rose Red would wake up early and do the housework. Then she would pick flowers and leave them next to their mother's bed. Among the flowers, there would always be 1 white and 1 red rose. In the winter, Snow White would light the fire. Her mother would ask Snow White to lock the door, and then the girls would gather around their mother, who would put her glasses on, and would open a thick book to read from it. The girls would listen and a young goat would curl up with them on the floor. One winter's evening, as they were doing just that, someone knocked on the front door. Snow White, "Open the door, it looks like a stranger needs shelter," the mother asked. Snow White unlocked the door, thinking that it was going to be some homeless man, freezing in the cold. But it wasn't a man. Standing there was a big bear. Snow White screamed in fright when she saw the animal. Rose Red was also scared and hid behind her mother's skirt. The goat bleated in terror. But the bear extended his paw in greeting. "Don't be afraid, kind ladies, I won't do you any harm. I am just really cold and I would like to warm up if you let me in," he said. The 3 women looked in amazement and fear at the talking bear. Soon their mother came to her senses and told the girls to calm down and help the bear get rid of the snow he had on his coat. The girls did as their mother told them. Feeling warm from the fire, the bear fell asleep and everyone went to bed. The next morning when the sun rose, the girls opened the door for the bear. He went into the woods to search for blueberries and fish, but he came back in the evening and again curled up by the fireplace. This continued through the winter, and the girls were so used to playing with the bear in the evening and to have him at home. But when the summer came and the bear had to leave, they were all very sad. "Where are you going to go?" Snow White asked the bear. "I need to go into the woods where I keep my wealth hidden from the evil dwarfs. In the winter, when the earth is frozen, they cannot reach it, but in the summer when the ground softens, they dig all over in search of treasure. Once they get the treasure, they hardly ever give it back," the bear replied. Snow White was really sad that Bear was leaving. They hugged and said goodbye to each other. Just as the bear was leaving the house, his skin got caught on the door handle, and it appeared to Snow White that gold shone under the bear's skin, but she wasn't sure. The bear ran out and soon Snow White lost him among the trees. One day the mother sent the girls into the wood to gather firewood. As they were walking, they came across a big tree, which had fallen down the path. On the tree there was a little man with a long beard, which was stuck under the tree. The dwarf was jumping around the crack, trying to pull out his beard, but with no success. When he saw the girls, he turned his aged, wrinkled face in their direction. His eyes were red, and it seemed that they would soon pop out. "What are you two staring at? Can't you come over and help?" "How did you end up like that?" asked Rose Red. "You curious thing, I was trying to gather some sticks to light a fire and cook a meal. Now stop asking stupid questions and quit that grinning. It's terrible," the dwarf shouted. The girls tried to pull, then push, then somehow roll the big tree, but it was too heavy for them, so they offered to go and get help. Ha! Is that the best you could think of? Who needs more people here? You two are more than enough anyway, the dwarf groaned. Stay still if you want to be free again, said Snow White and took a pair of scissors out of her pocket. She quickly cut the end of the dwarf's beard. What did you do, you stupid girl? How can you cut someone's beautiful long beard? He barked. With that, he threw his bag over his shoulder and left without even looking at them. One day the girls decided to go out to the river to catch some fish for dinner. When they approached the river, they noticed something which resembled a big grasshopper, jumping around the water, as if it was ready to jump in it. They ran towards it and found the same dwarf trying to pull out his beard from a big fish's mouth, but the fish was stronger. The girls grabbed him under the shoulders and tried to pull him, but the fish just wouldn't let the beard go. Snow White had no choice. She took out her scissors and cut off a small part of the dwarf's beard. What is that? You! Frogs! How dare you humiliate my face? My brothers will laugh at me now. Having said that, the dwarf took his bag, which was full of gems, and left without saying a word. Not long afterwards, Snow White and Rose Red were on the way to the nearest town to buy some needles and thread. As they were passing a meadow, they noticed a huge bird in the sky. The bird was flying low and passed close over their heads. The bird perched behind a big rock, and at that moment someone there squeaked. When it took off again, the girls saw the same old dwarf in the bird's claws. They ran just in time to catch the dwarf by the feet. The bird pulled up and they pulled down, and the dwarf was yelling in the middle, "How can you be so rude? Don't stretch my clothes, you stupid girls." When the bird finally gave up, the dwarf thudded onto the ground. The girls, who were already used to his rude manners, continued on their way to the town. The dwarf took a bag full of gems and sneaked into his cave. On their way back, they came across the dwarf again. He had laid out his jewels on the ground, thinking that no one would see him. The girls approached. "What are you looking at?" he yelled at them. His face went all red in anger, and he would have continued to yell at them if it hadn't been that all of a sudden they saw a bear running towards them. The dwarf ran towards his cave, but the bear was faster than him. The dwarf was terrified. He started begging. "Please, don't eat me. Here, take these lovely gems and spare my life. Why would you eat me? I am so little. Look at those horrible girls over there, eat them instead." The bear wasn't listening to him. With one swipe, he knocked the dwarf over. The girls ran away, but the bear followed them. "Snow White, Rose Red, don't be afraid, stop running, I'm coming with you," he said. The two girls recognized the voice and stopped to wait for their friend. As he was approaching them, his bearskin fell off, and a young man stood before them. He was dressed in gold. "I am a prince," he said and smiled. "That evil dwarf had bewitched me and stolen my treasure. Now that he is dead, the spell has been broken and I am a human again, and it's all thanks to you." Snow White married the prince and Rose Red, his brother. They split the dwarf's treasure evenly, and their mother moved to the castle with them. She took the rose trees with her and planted them under her window. Every year they flowered with exquisitely fragrant red and white roses. 2. The Two-Headed Weaver. Once upon a time, there lived a weaver by the name of Dora. One day when he was weaving the cloth, the wooden frames of his loom broke. He took an axe and went to the forest to bring wood in to make new frames. He went around the forest, but didn't find suitable wood for the frames. From the forest he went towards the seaside, where he saw a huge tree. He thought that if he could cut wood from the tree, he would have enough wood for all frames. As the weaver raised his axe to cut the tree, a spirit living on that tree said, "O weaver, this tree is my home, and it must not be cut in any event, because it prevents my body from the cool breeze which comes from the sea." Dora said, "Sir, if I don't cut the tree and take its wood home, then my family will starve and die, so please go somewhere else, as I have to cut this tree." The spirit answered, "If you do not cut the tree, I will give you a reward of your choice." The weaver said, "Sir, in that case I will go home and ask my wife and friends. When I will return, you must give me what I ask for." The spirit agreed to it, and the weaver returned home with joy. While coming back to the city, he met his friend, the barber, and said, "Friend, a spirit has given me a reward of my choice and gave me time to consult friends and my wife. Tell me what I should demand from him." The barber replied, "My dear friend, demand a kingdom where you could be the king and I would be your prime minister. You would be having a palace, where you can enjoy the pleasures of this world. If you would pay me a decent wage, both of us can enjoy life here and hereafter." Dora said, "True, but let me ask my wife too." The barber said, "A wise man should never ask women for advice. He can give a woman food, clothing, jewelry, and above all the duties of marriage, but should never ask for their advice. As women think only of their own benefit, and they have low wits." The weaver replied, "Even though this is true, still I would consult my wife, as she is my better half." After this, the weaver quickly went to his home and narrated the whole story of the spirit and his reward to his wife. He also told her that his friend, the barber, had advised him to ask for a kingdom. His wife said, "Oh my lord, what do barber understand? No wise man would consult children or barbers or servants or beggars. A king's life is full of hardships. He is always worried about friendships, enemies, wars, servants, defense, and deception. He never gets a minute's rest because anyone who rules hardly gets any time. The same container that is used for comfort can also be used to pour out bad luck. Never envy the life of a king." The weaver said, "You are right. But you haven't told me what reward I should choose." She answered, "Every day you can only weave a single piece of cloth, which is barely enough to meet our daily needs. You should ask for another pair of arms and another head so that you can work on 2 pieces of cloth at once, one in front of you and one behind you. The first piece will help us meet our daily needs. The second one will help us meet special needs. Thus, we can sail our life comfortably and happily." After listening to his wife, he said, "You are a faithful wife and you have spoken well. I will do what you have suggested." The weaver happily went to the spirit and said, "Sir, you have kindly given me a choice. I request you to give me 2 more hands and an extra head." He had hardly spoken before he was 2-headed and 4-armed. Rejoiced, he began his homeward journey. People on the way saw him and considered him a kind of demon. They threw stones at him and hit him with sticks. The poor weaver died on the spot. Moral: one who has no wits of one's own will perish. 3. Grammar page.